Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
My fiancée sent me a message. I still love you, but I need to find proper closure with my ex before I can marry you. I answered, take all the time you need, then immediately phoned her parents and returned the rings. She learned the engagement was over when her own mother and father asked why she was no longer wearing the diamond, and I'm sitting in my flat tonight and, for the first time in almost 3 years, the silence is absolute. 3 weeks ago, this place looked like wedding headquarters, checklists everywhere, seating charts on the fridge, fabric swatches on the coffee table. Now it's just mine again. And it feels right. A lot of you asked for the full timeline after my short post, so here it is. From the very first moment. It was an ordinary Thursday morning. Qley and I had a final venue walkthrough scheduled for that afternoon. We were 21 days from the ceremony. Everything was paid in full, non-refundable contracts signed, her gown altered and hanging in the spare room, my suit fitted, invitations long since mailed, RSVPs counted. We were locked and loaded. I was on a work call when my phone vibrated. I assumed it was her reminding me about parking at the venue. I was wrong. The message said, "Hey, I know the timing couldn't be worse, but I haven't been able to get Mark out of my head. I feel like I owe it to both of us to see him one last time and put it properly to rest before the wedding. It wouldn't be fair to you if I still had any questions. I love you, but I'm driving up to see him this weekend. Nothing has to change between us." I read it 3, 4, 5 times. Each pass felt colder than the last. Closure. With the ex she'd dated for 5 years. The one she used to call complicated and intense. The name that could still drop the temperature in a room. 3 weeks before vows. She needed a weekend with him to be sure. Something inside me didn't shatter. It simply switched off. It was the kind of brutal clarity you get when the fog lifts and you realize the road ends in a cliff. Every odd moment from the last few months suddenly made perfect sense. Her distance, the late-night phone glow she swore was group chat wedding stress, the evasive answers about weekend plans. I ended the work call, stared at the wall for maybe 4 minutes, and felt the future we'd mapped out evaporate. That text wasn't a discussion. It was an announcement. She had already decided. She was informing me, not consulting me. She was placing her lingering feelings for another man above the promise we'd made. And in that second I knew I would not sit at home wondering what hotel room she was in. I would not be the safe option warming the bench while she tested the starter. I would not be the consolation prize. I typed back, "Take your time." Then I silenced my phone and started dismantling the wedding with the same calm I used to close out a project at work. First call wasn't to my best mate or my mom. It was to her parents. Her dad, Richard, picked up. Solid guy, a little old school, always treated me well. "Richard, it's James. Sorry to interrupt your day, but something has come up with the wedding and I need to speak to you and Helen." Immediate worry in his voice. "Is Qley all right?" "She's fine," I said, "but she just told me she's spending this weekend with her ex, Mark, because she needs closure before she can marry me. She says she still loves me but has to do this. I can't proceed with a wedding under these conditions. As of now, the engagement is over." Dead air. Then I heard him repeat to Helen in the background, "She's going to see Mark." His tone changed, flat, stunned. "You're sure that's what she said?" "Word for word. I'm returning the rings this evening. I figured you deserved to hear it from me first." A bit of backstory on the rings. Qley insisted we both wear engagement bands, her idea of modern equality. Hers was the classic diamond I'd saved for. Mine was a plain platinum band her parents had custom-made as their welcome to the family gift. I never loved wearing it, but I did it for her. Now the symbolism felt poisonous. Richard sounded hollow. Come by after 6. I'll be home. Next came the vendors. Venue first, sympathy on the line, but the final payment was 2 weeks ago. 22 grand gone. Caterer, photographer, florist, band. Same script. $60,000 total, most of it clawed from my own savings over years. My parents had chipped in generously, but the bulk was mine. Gone in an afternoon, I drafted a short, neutral email to the entire guest list. Regretfully, the wedding of Qley and James will no longer take place. Thank you for your understanding. Let people gossip. The truth was uglier than anything they'd invent. Then I bought packing boxes and started erasing her from the flat she'd moved into 14 months earlier. Dresses, shoes that multiplied like rabbits, half-read novels, skincare worth more than my first car. Everything went in neatly labeled cartons. 22 by the end. The rooms instantly felt larger. They felt like mine again. At 6:45, I stood on her parents' doorstep. Helen opened the door, eyes already swollen. Richard stood behind her looking 10 years older. I stayed on the mat. I won't come in, I said, handing over the 2 ring boxes. Just returning these. Helen's voice cracked. James, we don't understand. Why now? You'll have to ask her that. All I know is she chose something else. I'm simply respecting her choice. I drove home, ate cold pizza, and changed every shared password we ever had. Update 1 week later, the support from strangers here kept me sane, so thank you. When I finished packing and canceling, Qley still had no idea the storm that was waiting for her. She was off on her closure weekend. Radio silence for 3 full days, no check-in texts, nothing. I used the time to finish untangling our lives. Canceled the Greece honeymoon, another 5 grand vanished. Removed her from bank accounts, utilities, the lease, everything. Sunday night, a text from an unknown number. Her maid of honor, Megan. James, what the hell is going on? Qley's parents are losing their minds and saying you ended everything? Is this a prank? My reply, no prank. Ask Qley. Monday morning, the dam broke. Voicemails, texts, missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Qley had finally spoken to her mum. James, call me right now. Mum says you gave the rings back and canceled the wedding? Have you lost your mind? We need to talk. Then the flood. You're overreacting. I told you I still loved you. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You had no right to touch my stuff. Zero apology. Zero ownership. Only outrage that I had dared react. Hours later, I sent one message. You needed closure before you could marry me. Consider it granted. Engagement over. Your things are boxed in the spare room. Let me know when your dad or a removal company can collect them. I'd prefer you not come yourself. Instant meltdown. Monster. Coward. Psycho. It was just 1 weekend. I was coming home to talk properly. I replied only once more. Locks are changed. Arrange collection. That triggered the flying monkeys. Megan and another bridesmaid, Sophie, started texting me essays about toxic masculinity and how real men fight for love. I blocked every new number that popped up. Tuesday evening, Richard emailed. He would bring a van Saturday morning and asked if Qley could be present to make sure nothing was forgotten. I agreed provided she stayed in the hallway and didn't walk through the flat. He accepted immediately. The rest of the week I existed in a strange half-life. Work, gym, sleep, stare at walls that no longer had her photos on them. Anger was giving way to a bone-deep sadness. Saturday arrived. Van on time. Richard and his brother-in-law did the heavy lifting. Qley lingered on the pavement in oversized sunglasses, face bloated from crying. She looked tiny. For 45 minutes she stood just inside the doorway whispering directions. That box has my winter coats. Careful with the mirror, and tried weak little openers at me. We could have talked. This is unnecessarily cruel. I said nothing, arms folded, watching her life disappear box by box. When the last carton was loaded, Richard paused at the door, wiped sweat from his forehead and said quietly, "I'm sorry, son." Qley stepped forward, took off the sunglasses, eyes red and wild. "Are you proud of yourself now? You destroyed everything." I met her gaze for the first time in a week. She looked like someone I used to know. "No, Qley," I said. "I just refuse to live in the mess you made." Then I shut the door. Update 2 1 month later. Friends now call it the Great Unwedding. The silence in the flat has gone from haunting to healing. I'm remembering who I was before I shrank to fit someone else's picture that I thought the drama would fade once her stuff was gone. Instead came the character assassination phase. Vague Instagram stories about escaping controlling behavior, emotional abuse, starting over after betrayal. Never my name, but everyone knew. Mutual friends started giving me side-eye. Some asked for my side. I stayed quiet until the lies reached my parents. That was the line that I took a single screenshot, her original text about needing to see Mark, and sent it privately to 3 strategic people. Megan's husband, a straight shooter I'd always got on with. My best man, who still moved in some of the same circles. Helen, Qley's MUMNO caption. No rant. Just the facts in Qley's own words and a short note. This is what ended the engagement. I'm not fighting in public, but you deserve the truth. Fallout was swift and surgical. Megan's husband apparently read her the riot act about spreading lies. She went dark online. The rumor mill flipped 180 degrees once people saw the text. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain. I was the guy who refused to be a doormat. The biggest shift happened inside Qley's family. Helen, faced with black and white proof, stopped defending her daughter and started holding her accountable. The whole house dynamic changed overnight. And Mark? The grand romantic reunion lasted exactly 1 weekend. Turns out he'd been telling Qley he was basically separated from his wife. Classic cheater script. When Qley showed up a week later with boxes and a sob story, ready to move into the spare room, his wife delivered an ultimatum. He chose the marriage he already had. Qley was left with no fiancé, no backup plan, no home, and a reputation in tatters. She'd quit her job 2 months before the wedding so she could focus on the big day, living entirely on my income. Now she had car payments, credit card bills, and 0 wages. The panicked apologies started flowing to my parents. My mum rang me, voice soft. "She sounds devastated, darling." "She's not devastated, Mum. She's broke. There's a difference." Last loose end. The joint wedding savings account still had roughly $10,000 in it after final vendor payments. While Qley was spiraling, she drained it. My lawyer sent a polite letter to her parents' address requesting my legal half and helpfully attaching an itemized list of the 60 grand in non-refundable losses. A check for $5,000 arrived days later, signed by Richard. No note. It wasn't about the money. It was the quietest possible way for them to admit who was actually in the wrong. War over. Final update, 6 months later seasons have turned. The sharp edges have dulled into something that almost feels like gratitude. The flat is truly mine now. New paint, new sofa, one I actually like. Hiking boots by the door instead of her endless heels. I've picked up the parts of myself I'd quietly set aside to keep the peace. Qley, from what drifts back, is working retail, still sleeping in her childhood bedroom under the same posters she had at 16. Jessica and Sophie slowly ghosted once being Team Qley stopped being socially advantageous and started looking like endorsing a train wreck. I ran into Richard at the DIY store a couple of months ago. Awkward beat. Then he crossed the aisle, shook my hand firmly and asked how I was keeping. Before he walked off, he said, "She's in therapy now, trying to figure out why she threw away something solid for a fantasy. I hope one day she gets it." Not quite an apology, but close enough to real closure. The sweetest revenge isn't her struggle. I don't celebrate anyone's pain. The sweetest revenge is waking up every morning knowing I respected myself when it mattered most. Work is good, friends are solid, I'm dating here and there with no pressure, and I am genuinely content. A few weeks ago, I was at trivia night with the lads and glanced across the bar. There she was. New crowd, new haircut, same regret in her eyes when they met mine. She managed the tiniest, saddest smile and looked away. That I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity. Just the calm certainty that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She went searching for closure with an ex instead. She handed me closure from her. And for that, strangely, I'm thankful. Thanks for reading. Time to close the book and keep walking forward.